Well, we all know Home Alone. To many, watching this movie over the holiday season has even become a Christmas tradition, and fans of this movie no doubt know everything there is to know about this festive tale about an 8-year-old Kevin McAllister who gets left behind when his family goes on a trip to Paris, where he must protect the family house from local goofball burglars, the Wet Bandits. However, over the years, fans of this movie have come up with theories to suggest that there may be more to Home Alone than meets the eye, where many questions are asked, like, could overall dirtbag Uncle Frank secretly be part of the Wet Bandits? Is Kevin a time traveler? Or is he even alive for that matter? Are the McAllisters really a cult? Is Elvis really alive in the Home Alone universe? And what else can we learn about Fuller other than he pisses the bed? Well, nothing, he just pisses the bed. That's it! But regardless, it's all still interesting. So today we are going to explore these theories by looking into my list of craziest Home Alone theories. So let's arm the house with traps as we check it out. You filthy animal. So here's the rules of my deep dive into the Home Alone crazy theories. 1 is I'll address the theory, and then 2, I'll talk about its merit to see if somehow, in some weird dimension or form or another, the theory could actually be real or hold any weight. So let's start. Number 10, Elvis has entered the building. Okay, so one of the strangest theories associated with Home Alone is that Elvis apparently turns up in the background, and thus proving that the king didn't really die in 1977. It's in the scene where Kate McCallister is in an airport, holding up a queue, desperately trying to get home to Kevin, where many eagle-eyed viewers have felt that this background extra is in fact Elvis. So, does this theory have any merit? Well, no, because although the idea of Elvis secretly being alive and turning up in Home Alone sounds exciting, it actually goes against the conspiracy theory that Elvis faked his own death to live a normal life away from the spotlight. If this is true, then why on earth would Elvis go on to star in a Hollywood production? That, and if Elvis was walking around the airport where this scene was filmed, it probably would have caused major pandemonium. I mean, everyone would have been screaming, "Look, it's Elvis, he's alive, the king is here." No, it turns out that this so-called Elvis extra was played by a part-time actor, Gary Richard Grott, who has sadly since passed away. I already made an entire video about this conspiracy, where several people in the comments said that they felt that this background extra actually looked less Elvis and more like Al from Home Improvement. Number 9. Peter McCallister is a mobster / crime lord. So one thing is for certain when we watch Home Alone. That is, the McCallisters have a lot of wealth. Not only does Kevin's father, Peter McCallister, own a big mansion, but he can take his family and brother's family on an all-expenses paid-for trip to Paris, and then Florida in the sequel. In other words, Peter McCallister is dripping in wealth and luxury, and we never find out what he does for a living and how he's accumulated so much wealth. Well, one theory claims that Peter McCallister is actually a crime boss. So, once again, the big question is, does this theory hold any merit? Well, yes it does. I mean, there's nothing to suggest in the movie that Peter McCallister isn't a crime boss or mobster of some kind. As Distractify.com puts it, why at the start of the movie when Peter saw what he initially thought was a cop, the first thing he did was ask,
"Am I under arrest or something?"
"Yeah, Peter, what's all that about? What have you got to hide?" Maybe he thought that his crimes had finally caught up with him. Also, Peter McCallister has a copy of Angels with Filthy Souls on VHS, so clearly he has an interest in mobsters, and maybe he looks up to the Johnny character for inspiration.
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
But the theory of Peter McCallister possibly having a dark side doesn't end there. Number 8. Peter McCallister also tried to get Kevin killed. Okay, so just when you thought that Peter McCallister couldn't get any more nefarious with his possible drug trafficking and money laundering shenanigans, we then get to the darkest theory associated with Peter, that he actually tried to get Kevin killed, all thanks to the scene during the pizza fiasco when Kevin pushes Buzz. In that scene, we see Peter grab Kevin's plane ticket and throw it in the bin. No doubt so no one will notice that Kevin is missing the next day. And also something that most viewers probably didn't notice the first few times they saw the movie. And also the theory further claims that Peter knew the Wet Bandits would try to burgle the place and thus probably kill Kevin. So he tried to get rid of this kid once and for all. So, does this theory hold merit? Well, to a degree, yeah, it kind of does. We all know that the Wet Bandits have been burgling the area, thus Peter was probably aware of this and was hoping that his home would be hit and that Kevin would be taken down. Maybe he even knows the Wet Bandits, as he happily gives away all the house's security measures.
We have automatic timers for our lights, locks for our doors. That's about as well as anybody can do these days, right?
And throughout the movie, Peter honestly doesn't really seem all that concerned about Kevin. Like seriously dude, what's up with that? Even when Peter returns home on Christmas Day, he still doesn't seem overjoyed to see Kevin. I mean, yeah, he hugs Kevin, but it looks kind of forced. And if you watch that scene carefully, in a really blasé way, he's sort of like, yay, Kevin, yeah, Kevin my boy, yeah. He really doesn't seem all that into the fact that Kevin's alive. Probably because, unlike his plans, Kevin didn't die. And he even just walks away and leaves Kevin on his own.
You went shopping? He doesn't know how to tie his shoe. He's going shopping?
Wow. Just wow. Yeah, Peter McCallister isn't exactly overjoyed, is he? In fact, I think Buzz was more happy to see Kevin than his actual loving parent was. So even if Peter wasn't in some kind of scheme to get Kevin killed, he still doesn't seem all that concerned about him. There is also a similar theory that the Wet Bandits work for Peter McCallister, and that once again he orchestrated the ordeal in order to train Kevin into becoming some kind of trap expert / super soldier agent of some kind. Number 7. The events of the movie are all part of Kevin's overactive imagination. Home Alone had many classic moments, but what if, just what if, none of these moments ever happened, and that it was all in Kevin's head, like Inception, or in this case, Kevinception. Okay, so this theory goes that most of the movie doesn't happen. Now, Kevin's parents did head to Paris and leave him behind, but Kevin actually spends most of the movie hiding under his parents' bed, which we see him do, and that the events that take place, particularly with the Wet Bandits, are all part of his imagination. So, once again, does this theory hold merit? Well, yeah, it actually does. In the movie, we know that Kevin has a very overactive imagination. When Kevin sees the house's furnace, he sees it as a glowing, growling monster. But we know that's not the case and that it's all in his head. Also, when Kevin reflects on the bad treatment that he received from his family, it's actually exaggerated and not how it actually happened.
Look what you did, you little jerk! Look what you did, you little jerk.
In fact, Buzz says something that doesn't even happen about feeding Kevin to his tarantula.
Kevin, I'm going to feed you to my tarantula.
And so if all these crazy events are just in Kevin's head, then that'll explain why the Wet Bandits can go through many brutal traps and yet seemingly be okay and, you know, not die. If the violence inflicted on the Wet Bandits is part of a child's imagination, then that'll explain the Looney Tunes logic of their injuries. Number 6. The McAllister family is a cult. One thing is for sure, the McAllister family is huge, which is made up of Peter and Frank McAllister, along with their wives and huge army of children. Who knows, maybe these children aren't even really their children, but rather children that they have kidnapped to join their cult. Also, keep in mind that the McAllisters don't even interact with outsiders, but rather they stick to their own. And the two households can only vacation with each other. It's 3 households if you want to include the relatives in Paris. The theory further claims that when Buzz tells the story of Old Man Marley, he did so to make his relatives, aka fellow cult members, scared of him, so they won't go near him. Hence, they won't interact with anyone in the outside world, only those in the McAllister cult. So what about the validation of this theory? Well, to me, nah, just nah. Personally, I always felt the McAllister family was just a really tight-knit family who go on vacations with each other, something that is even pointed out by Kevin in Home Alone 2.
I wouldn't want to spoil your fun, Mr. Cheapskate.
But that doesn't necessarily make them a cult. But what about the huge onslaught of kids? Well, maybe the McAllister parents just really like doing the spicy tango, I guess. Except for one anomaly. Yep, that anomaly being Linny McAllister, as in the blonde girl who calls Kevin
Les incompetents.
However, in the sequel, Linny now looks completely different, because she is a different person. So going by the cult theory, the first Linny died after the first movie, or escaped, and Peter and Kate McAllister got another kid to take her place. Number 5, Gus is the devil. Okay, so this is where things get really ghoulish. But there are quite a few fan theories that the character Gus, played by John Candy, who took Kate McAllister home, was in fact the Dark Lord himself, Satan. Why? Because Kate was so desperate to get home to Kevin, she said that she would sell her soul to the devil himself.
If I have to sell my soul to the devil himself, I am going to get home to my son.
Where all of a sudden the devil appears in the form of Gus, a polka band member. According to Screen Rant, the theory further claims that the airport location where this scene is set, Scranton, is near a crossroad, hence the mythology of the plight of the devil at the crossroads. And by the time Kate McAllister got home, Peter and the rest of the family soon followed, meaning Kate sold her soul to the devil for nothing, which is often the moral lesson of selling your soul to the devil. It never really works. So what do I think of this theory? Well, no, I don't believe it at all. Why? Well, because Gus already showed up in the background before Kate offers her soul, and I think Kate saying that she'll give her soul to the devil was just to demonstrate how desperate she was. It didn't mean that she was literally going to sell her soul to the evil Dark Lord. So I know what you're all thinking. If that's the case, then why have the rest of the McAllisters show up in the household shortly after Kate arrived? Well, simple. It was a Christmas miracle. Number 4. Kevin is dead and becomes Jigsaw in the Saw movies. Okay, so these are two pretty crazy theories, so I thought that I would round them up together. One is that Kevin is actually a ghost, and that he actually haunts the McAllister family house. That's why he gets referred to by the living members of the household as a disease. So, does this theory have any merit? No, it's just a poo sandwich, as we clearly see Kevin interact with his family, as well as members of the community outside the family home, such as the lady that he asked about a toothbrush, the lady at the grocery store, and of course the wet bandits. However, I do think the growing up to become Jigsaw theory does make more sense, as just like Jigsaw, Kevin does seem to indulge in punishing people with sadistic traps, designed to cause as much pain and physical harm as possible. Let's face it, if Home Alone was real, Kevin would be a psychopath and would no doubt be locked up and considered very dangerous. And of course, what would happen to this kid when he grows up? Yeah, I can actually see him becoming Jigsaw. Number 3, Old Man Marley is Kevin from the future. In Home Alone, we learn that the character Old Man Marley is not as scary as all the rumours and stories suggest that he is, as he's just a lonely old man who misses his family. But one theory explains that Marley is Kevin from the future, who has travelled back in time to help Kevin patch things up with his family, and also be there to save Kevin, aka his younger self, from the Wet Bandits. Keep in mind that when Marley saves Kevin from the Wet Bandits, he just sort of turns up. There's really no explanation for him being there, almost as if he knew where and when to be. So how do I feel about this theory? Well, yeah, if we can believe that an elderly Kevin somehow got a flux capacitor and travelled back in time, then yes, this is feasible. After all, in the memorable church scene, we learn that there are parallels of Kevin and Marley. They both have issues with families, of which has led to conflict, with them now longing for their family's return. Kevin misses his parents, Marley misses his son and granddaughter. And they both sort of learn from each other, as they have the same dilemma. Only one is elderly and the other is a child. And yeah, maybe they even do look like they could be the same person, with a 60 to 70 year age gap. So there definitely is symbolic similarities between the two characters of them being two different sides of the same coin, as both characters have to learn to let go of their grievances with their family in order to move on and flourish within their families and to no longer be lonely. After all, that's how they found each other in the church. They were lonely. And if we are to go with the time travel logic here, maybe old man Marley, aka elderly Kevin, went back to his younger self to teach him to get along with family, so old man Marley later down the track won't keep fighting with his family and thus have the massive falling out that he had with his son, where as he puts it, he was no longer welcome. Number 2, Uncle Frank was in on the Wet Bandits scheme. Without a doubt, Uncle Frank is one horrible piece of crap. Not only does he freelance a holiday for his entire family from his brother, but he won't even pay for the pizza.
Oh, it's my brother's house. He'll take care of it.
Frank, you've got the money, don't you? Come on.
Traveler's checks.
Forget it, Frank. We have cash.
Are you kidding me, Frank? He also forced his wife to steal glassware on an airplane, and when it's learned that Kevin is home alone and possibly in danger, he is still having a great holiday and seems to be celebrating without a care in the world.
Look what I have found in the kitchen.
Frank, those are for later.
Well, I'm glad to see his nephew being in danger didn't affect his appetite. And he also amounts leaving Kevin behind to forgetting his reading glasses. What an asshole.
If it makes you feel any better, I forgot my reading glasses.
Not to mention the fact that he's horrible to Kevin, calling him a jerk and downright putting him down. Putting this poor kid through all kinds of emotional abuse. So no doubt about it, Uncle Frank is not a great guy. Heck, there's a deleted scene where he pulls Kevin's pants down. Quick! Someone call protective services and get this guy away from Kevin. However, there's one theory that makes Frank look even worse. The theory explains that Frank was in on the Wet Bandit scheme to rob the McAllister household, and there are further claims that he even intended to have Kevin set up to make it look like Kevin committed the evil deed, to other claims that he set up for Kevin to get killed by the Wet Bandits. So could this be true? Could Uncle Frank be part of the Wet Bandits, or at least part of their scheme, helping to rob his brother's home thanks to being resentful of his brother's wealth and success? Well, as much as Frank is a horrible character, and he is, and that it would be easy to just pin it all on him, unfortunately the theory just doesn't work. For starters, Frank had nothing to do with Kevin getting left behind. And we also learn that Harry has always wanted to rob the McAllister home ever since he laid eyes on it, and thus he wants it real bad, making his mission to rob the household personal, rather than it just being an inside job that he was put up to.
Ever since I laid eyes on that house, I wanted it.
However, I've had some people tell me in the social media comments that in the original script of Home Alone, Uncle Frank was in fact behind the Wet Bandits' home invasion of the McAllister house, and that he talked Peter into taking the family to France so the Wet Bandits could fleece their home and destroy it. Now, I personally haven't read this script, but going by what's presented in the movie, I think Frank is just a self-loving idiot, not so much a crime-burgling mastermind. That, and we don't actually see Uncle Frank interacting with the Wet Bandits. So Frank is lucky, he gets off this one. That doesn't mean he's not a jerk though. Number 1. The events of Home Alone happened because of a magical wish. Okay, this is actually a theory that I made up. That being the spectacular events of the movie happened due to Kevin making a magical wish, taking Home Alone into supernatural territories. Okay, so on the surface, Home Alone is a family comedy about a kid who accidentally gets left at home due to a set of circumstances, where of course hilarity ensues. However, there's one scene that suggests that a higher power may be part of events. After Kevin is sent to sleep in the attic so he doesn't get peed on by Piss Boy, we hear a voiceover by Kevin saying that he wishes that his family would just disappear.
I wish they would all just disappear.
We then see the weather suddenly change and go hectic, and John Williams' score suddenly shifts to being quite spooky and sinister. And in a shot unlike any other in the movie, the camera does a quick zoom to the McAllister's wreath decoration on the front door, which zooms in on the head of Santa, and the shot actually kind of makes it look sinister. This shot, along with the music, is generally quite unnerving, and the way it's shot, it's almost suggesting that Santa is granting Kevin's wish and causing the chain of events that'll see him separated from his family. You know, creating the storm that would cut out the power, thus stopping their alarm going off the next day and then being in a hurry and leaving him behind, aka making his family disappear. When Kevin wakes up the next day, he actually believes that he made his family disappear.
I made my family disappear.
In the movie itself, we're meant to believe that this is 8-year-old logic, and that we know that they haven't really disappeared, but maybe his wish caused them to go to Paris without him, and for Kevin to be left behind. Throughout the movie, there is lots of Santa Claus references and imagery, namely the Santa wreath, which I believe subtly suggests that Santa is actually behind this. After Kevin enjoys the perks of being on his own, he watches Angels with Filthy Souls, which actually scares Kevin and leads him to call out to his mum. Of which she could somehow hear, as if there was some kind of psychic link between Kevin and Kate McAllister, where she frantically calls out to Kevin, "Kevin!" It's as if Kevin calling out to his mum broke the spell of the magic wish. In fact, this mysterious entity, or Santa who is behind the events of Home Alone, did seem to make many positive changes. Kevin learned to be more accepting of his family, as well as changing his behaviour, along with facing his fears and becoming more able, confident and headstrong. He was no longer les incompetents, as he could now stand on his own 2 feet. I think Buzz summed it up perfectly when he said,
A little trout can use a couple of days in the real world.
He also helped Old Man Marley reunite with his family and put a stop to 2 dangerous criminals. So a lot of good came from Kevin being left behind. Even certain members of the McAllister family learned to be better people. Well, that was until part 2. So does this magical wish theory hold merit? Well, as it's my theory, I can't say, as I'll be biased towards it. So I'll let you guys decide. So that was my exploration into some Home Alone theories. Some of them are interesting, some of them are bonkers, but either way, Home Alone is a classic, and a film that fans seem to love exploring and looking further to see if there is anything else to be learnt by this film. Anyway, I'm Minty, and when you think about it, none of the events in Home Alone would have happened if Buzz just kept his hands off Kevin's cheese pizza. See ya!